Manoj needs no introduction as a member of the community family. Manoj is an ACC, is a psychologist, published author, NLP expert. And this is one of the simplest LinkedIn profiles you will come across. He's got just one work experience, 25 years with the Next Leap Research Institute. I said, wow, I discovered that today. So, he's big time into corporate training. Anything else you want to add, Manoj?
Yeah, I'm doing my PCC.
Yeah, Manoj is on his PCC journey with us. Yeah. Over to you, Manoj. Others are joining. I think I'll stop sharing and you can share. Good to see a lot of friends here. Thank you for joining. Ajay, are you back?
You're on mute, Ajay, if you can.
Good to see.
Yes, Subhash, I'm back.
Good to see you, Shweta, Meena, overseas friends especially. Yeah. Hi, Deepa. Over to you, Manoj.
Yeah. Thanks, Subhash. And I have prepared a few slides. I will just share it. So I thought I'll share a few things. One is, of course, the origin story and how the idea came, because that itself is something I would want to share. And the crux of the book, and the last is just one idea from the book. Just an overview of the book. And maybe we can have some interaction in between and through the session. So that's what I thought I would do. This is my first sharing about the book after it is released. I just shared it in the social media, and after that I've been very quiet. So this is the first opportunity, and thanks Subhash for this opportunity. So I'll go ahead and I'll just share how it all started. Basically, I'm a trainer and I do classes and I prepare handout materials. And then the idea was, why don't I turn these handout materials to just expand on that and turn it into a book? So that was the idea, and that's how I wrote my first book on NLP. My own handout material, expanding it and turning it into a book. After I finished my first book, I thought I'll take another workshop of mine and turn it into a book. And I thought psychology of decision-making is something that I prepared a lot of handout materials, and I'll probably go with that as my second book. But then something happened, and this idea just took hold of me. And so this is how it all started. I make various presentations on various topics. And once I was asked to make a presentation on Sigmund Freud's defense mechanism. So I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I put certain ideas together. I think of examples, and it was just another preparation for me. But something clicked for me. And that's how this idea of this book originated. So I'll just switch to a notepad. And of course, it's a dear topic to me, and I like to speak about defense mechanism of Sigmund Freud. But there's something I noticed in these various mechanisms, right? So I'll just give a few examples and how I connected it, the various defense mechanisms. Say, for example, rationalization, right? It's one of the defense mechanisms. And I thought of an example, okay, what example to give for this rationalization? And I thought, okay, a student gets less marks, right? Quite less marks. Finds it very difficult to accept that, it's because of me, or because of me taking it for granted, or because of my laziness, I got less marks. So it's very painful to experience this failure for this student, right? So what he does rationalization, and he comes up with some kind of a story that makes it little easy for him to go through that experience. And so he says, I got this less marks because a lot of questions came A lot of questions came out of syllabus, right? Questions came out of syllabus. And he thinks, yeah, it's true. It's true, right? Out of syllabus. And maybe he thinks the teachers were not good. The schools were not good, right? The teachers were not good. They didn't teach me properly. They did not cover this particular chapter very well. So teachers were not good. And he comes up with a lot of this rationalization and actually believes that this is a true story. And this helps him cope with that failure, cope with that unpleasant experiences. It's one of the defense mechanisms. So I went through various examples. I thought, okay, I'll give this example. I give that example. Of course, there was no such insight at that point in time about the book, but then I'll give just another 2 examples. There is this denial. This is another defense mechanism. And there's a lady, she's married, and she happens to see certain clear evidence that her husband is having affair, right? Very, very difficult to accept. And so she completely goes into denial. There is nothing like that. My husband will never do that, right? He cannot have an affair. And she believes that this is the truth, and it helps her to cope with that unpleasant experience. Completely stays in denial, right? I'll just give you another one last example. Projection. This is another defense mechanism. And projection is something that is wrong with us. We see it in another person, right? So if a money-minded person thinks the other people are money-minded. But actually, the truth is that I am money-minded, right? Or if you say he is so judgmental, the truth is I am so judgmental, because only a judgmental person can make such a statement. Or he is so negative, right? But the truth is I am so negative. But it's nice to put the whole thing on the other person. That is projection. And these things doesn't happen at the conscious. I mean, the person who is doing all this may not even be aware that he is doing all this. So I went through, and anyone here remember any of those defense mechanisms? Anything else other than rationalization, denial, projection? Anybody aware? Can
Yeah, most of that happening in sales, Manoj.
Yeah. So there is a list of defense mechanisms, from sublimation, repression, suppression, no displacement. There is a list of such this thing. I went through. I took the 10 most important one and I prepared the presentation. But as I was preparing, I felt there's something that connects everything. There's a thread that runs through every defense mechanism. Can you guess? It's very easy to guess.
Fear.
Yeah?
Fear.
Fear. Yes. Fear. Yeah. One is fear. Okay. One thread is fear. Anything else? Acceptance, huh?
Yeah, acceptance.
Yeah, not able to accept, right? I'll put it as non-acceptance. Non-acceptance.
Some kind of insecurity.
Yeah?
Insecurity.
Insecurity. Anything else?
Vulnerability.
Sorry.
Justification.
I couldn't make out.
One of them said vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Yeah. So there are
Shame.
There's a shame involved. There's a lot of factors involved. But the word that came to me is the first time the word that came to me that we want to avoid something, right? Avoid some kind of a painful experience, avoid some painful emotions, painful thought, or a painful experience. So the first word that came to me was avoid. That we want to avoid something. We want to avoid rejections. We want to avoid criticism. We want to avoid something which is unpleasant and very painful. Later on, I thought about non-acceptance. That's another word that came to me, that we are not willing to accept the reality, right? Because the reality is very harsh and painful. So we come up with this defense mechanism to soothe ourselves, to to be able to handle ourselves because it's too painful for us. And that kind of struck me. So that non-acceptance kind of just stayed in my mind, right? So I went through this presentation and I felt this non-acceptance is the key that I need to probably speak about it. Even then I was thinking from a presentation perspective. I felt, oh, this is an idea, right? I could find a thread among all these points. So I felt good about coming up with an insight. May not be a big insight, but I felt good. And I went through the presentation, right? And I said, we want to avoid, the keyword was avoid, anxiety, rejection, failure, criticism, fear, loss, etc. And so we come up with these defense mechanisms. But after the presentation, it stayed. The word avoid, the word non-acceptance stayed in my mind. There's one thing that I take class, there's another parallel thing that I want to improve myself, right? That's also a quest. And then I started noticing certain things that is not acceptable to me personally, right? There are certain things that I personally want to avoid. And it is so disguised that it's so difficult to even catch that I'm trying to avoid something. So one of the journey that I have in my self-improvement, even now I have that in my self-improvement journey, is that some of my self-improvement journeys are success stories and some of them are like not so successful story. It's work in progress. And one of the things that in my self-improvement that I've kept is that I would want to become more peaceful compared to last year, right? So year after year, I need to become more and more at ease with myself, at peace with myself. This is something that I have kept it as a goal for so many years, right? I used to be very short-tempered. I used to be very angry type of a person. I used to be very stressed out person. And I feel I made a little bit progress there. But this is a continuous journey that I want to be more peaceful compared to last year, right? Little bit more. This is self-improvement. What is the danger here? Anyone can guess? What is the danger to have such a goal? I mean, forget about comparing it last year. I want to be more peaceful. What is the danger here? I want to
not taking enough risks.
Not taking enough risk.
Comfort zone.
Comfort zone.
There is already a want here.
There is already a want here.
So right now I'm not peaceful.
Yeah, right now I'm not peaceful. Right now I'm not peaceful.
Very open-ended. What is more peaceful?
Yeah, of course, it means to feel a little lighter in the body and in the mind, not having stressful emotions or angry or other kinds of pressure and all that.
Might lead to avoidance in one way.
Yeah, so what is that I want to avoid? When I say I want to be more peaceful, what is that I want to avoid?
Chaos.
Yeah.
Confrontation. Chaos.
Yeah. So I can say non-peace. I want to avoid non-peace, right? That means I don't want to be disturbed. I don't want to lose my peace. I don't want to be stressed out. I would like to be light and peace. And the more I want to be peaceful, the more I want to avoid this emotional disturbance. So I want to avoid this emotional disturbance, right? I want to avoid this emotional disturbance. So in a way that this non-peace became non-acceptable, right? I cannot accept non-peace. It becomes kind of non-acceptable. So the more I crave for peace, the more I want to avoid disturbance. Another self-improvement goal that I've kept for so many years is that I want to be more productive. Looks very nice. I want to be more productive, but the side effect is I cannot accept me being non-productive, right? So I want to avoid being non-productive, right? So these elements, that what is it that I'm trying to avoid? What is it that is not acceptable to me? And then I thought I need to do more self-work. I need to identify more of what is not acceptable to me. And I started maintaining journal, wanting to bring this acceptance to certain elements, because non-acceptance, I realized, is making things even more worse. I'm getting into a vicious cycle. And instead of being more peaceful and more productive, I'm going actually the other way around. Right? So I started maintaining journal. And that journal, over a period of time, I felt it's even more important that this topic, the acceptance topic, became even more important in my mind. And I started seeing people committing suicide because they were not able to accept a breakup, or they are not able to accept a failure. I even felt that a lot of people even go to mental hospital. They lose their sanity because they are not able to accept certain situations. So that's how I felt this topic is so very important, right? Because in a state of non-acceptance, we don't give ourselves permission to experience so-called negative emotions, right? We don't give ourselves that permission to go through those negative experiences. But life is about positive and negative experiences. And that's how I felt that from avoid, I wanted to move to acceptance. That was my personal journey. But then I felt it's such a powerful idea. I mean, life, if we keep running away and if we want to avoid and not acceptable, life can become very, very miserable. So there is this harshness of life, but then the suffering becomes even more when you add non-acceptance to it, right? If I have headache, that itself is quite painful experience, but non-acceptance makes the headache even worse, right? The experience makes it even more worse. It adds to suffering. So that's how I thought I'll turn this into a book. And it's not a workshop that I do, but it was a self journey. And initially it was just wanting to improve myself, and that's how it started. But later it turned into a book. That's the origin story. Anybody would like to say something, ask something?
Manoj,
Yeah,
yeah.
Any questions so far?
Manoj, you can hear me?
Yes. Can you raise your electronic hand so that I will know?
It is Satyajit from Bombay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Satyajit.
Yeah. Manoj, you said that journaling helped you a lot, to write the book.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
How did it help you? So we would like to learn from this, your experience of journaling.
Yeah, so journaling, most of the time I will have some kind of a topic in my mind to journal, and I'll observe myself based on that topic. I'll observe myself, the thoughts that I'm experiencing, the feelings that I go through the day, and then I would write on that. So it's some topic where I'm doing some kind of a, suppose, for example, if I want to reduce my sarcastic comments, right? I come up with sarcastic jokes which hurts people. It's something that I worked on. I think I've reduced that. So my journaling will be only on that topic. What prompts me to come up with sarcastic comments? What happened before? So it's a little bit of exploration on what is prompting me sarcastic comments, how I go about doing that, so my thoughts about it, to bring more awareness to it, and what is the impact of that on other people? What is it that I'm getting out of this? So I keep writing on sarcastic, my habit of sarcastic jokes, till I feel that I have made some progress. So in this case, I was writing about non-acceptance and acceptance. So I kept getting ideas, but it was purely from a self-improvement perspective. But then I felt this idea has some power, right? Acceptance is so important. And even relationship, I feel acceptance is the most primary element, because if you don't accept the other person the way they are, it leads to a lot of issues, right? So accepting life and accepting ourselves. So I felt it's such an important topic. And so journaling helped me to not only understand my own personal journey, but also I felt this topic is so very important. Yeah. Yes. Can I go ahead, Shruti?
I have just an observation and a question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it seems to me when I'm listening to you that it's very much in line with the teachings of Buddha.
Yeah.
You know, that dukkha, or the unsatisfactoriness, being not exactly because that life has pain to it, but because we resist and we stay in a state of craving to have a continually positive experience or a positive sensation.
Yeah.
And we oppose ourselves to negative sensations. And it's that mental scheming, that working to create a continuous positive experience, that is actually what creates suffering. So they say a lot of times in the Buddhist thought that pain is inevitable, but suffering is not.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I'm just wondering how much that influenced or came into your
it's the same theme. It's just the same thing, that especially me coming from this self-improvement perspective and wanting to be more positive. And I still remember there was a person who spoke about happiness and why we need to develop a happiness is an attitude. And so I got so excited after listening to the speaker, and I wanted to be a happy person and I want to be a positive person. And what it created was that some resistance to suffering. Some resistance to unpleasant situation. So I've traveled that journey because life is life, you know, everything is in it. And it's not like wanting only positive experiences itself is moving away from reality and trying to create some kind of a fantasy world that is not the reality of the world, you know. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. And my other question for you is, did you explore, or I'm wondering how you might relate to this, the idea of acceptance as a doorway to transcendence?
Not so much into transcendence, and it leads to transcendence, but it is to be one with life. It is to be one with. So I'm not presenting it as transcendence, but being one with life. Yeah.
Okay,
it leads to that. Yeah. Yes, Shruti.
Hey, Manoj. I love the fact that you touched upon this being a personal journey, because when we usually talk about a book, it's about what problem is this going to solve? What are we going to learn about this? But the fact that you connected it with your own learning makes it even more enriching to even listen to. So thank you so much. Also, the fact that nowadays we have a lot of people who say, be positive. As a lot of people that I come across, they say, I'm a very positive-minded person. But the fact that you said every emotion is important, and that kind of leads to a toxic positivity trait nowadays, a lot of it that we see. So I haven't read your book, but I really look forward to it. This is really exciting. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, one can have a positive attitude, but there's a toxic positivity, and I've gone through that. And so that's the second aspect. Yes, Bindu. Yeah. Yes, please.
Very tiny observation. You mentioned that life is full of positive and negative experiences. My observation is that life is experience. Positive and negative is a matter of perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed, Bindu. In fact, that label positive and negative is not, that itself is kind of there's a non-acceptance there itself. Life is a stream of experiences. And every experience is sacred, right? Every experience is so sacred, and yeah. Thanks, Bindu. Yes. Yes, Karan.
Yeah, hi, Manoj. So gym is my, place where I think and I reflect and all of that. So today when I was in the gym, a thought came to me. The thought was this. The thought was acceptance is not agreeing to it.
Yes.
Okay? So let's say if somebody gives me a negative feedback, what we tend to do is we don't even accept the feedback.
Yes.
I can accept the feedback, but might not agree to it. You mentioned when partner is not, up to your standards, a lot of you start to not accept the partner. That leads to a lot of issues, right, in relationships. Now, I might accept that that's the way she or he is, but I might not agree to his or her terms. I might not agree to his or her way of living and all that. So for me, the realization was acceptance is the first step. Agreement or disagreement can still happen later on. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, acceptance is nothing to do with agreement. You're agreeing to something and not agreeing to something is totally different from acceptance. Acceptance is acknowledging what is. There are a couple of other words that I like to share as in the coming slides. And so it's different. There is a movie, there is a Tamil and Telugu. I don't know if it was made in Hindi. There is a movie where the heroine dies and the hero is completely in denial, refuses to accept that the heroine has died and carries the dead body around. And the police is now tracking the hero in order to find the heroine so that they can do the burial or do the last rites, But the hero carries the dead body and keep traveling, saying that you're not dead, right? So acceptance is moving away from reality. And when we move away from reality, that's moving away from life itself. Yeah. Yeah, so I will take Rakhi and Ajit. And I have a few more slides. I'll go with that. Yes, Rakhi.
Just sharing my 2 cents on this. So I feel that happiness is more like happiness or sadness is derived from events, right? It's kind of momentary, whereas peace is more like a state of mind, and that comes from a balance.
Yeah.
So if we can understand what balance means to us, and as you said, like acceptance is that negative will happen and you cannot always stay in a state of positivity, but being okay with that is where I get my peace of mind from.
Yeah. Thanks, Rakhi. Yes, Ajit.
Yeah, hi. So the question I have is that does acceptance sometimes lead or take in the direction of contentment or complacency? Because sometimes, that forced acceptance could also lead to that, okay, I don't have a choice now, what else to do? So I just accept this situation, you know what I mean?
So I have a few slides on that. I'll present you because that's the question now. See, the paradox of life is the more I accept. They say the more you resist, the more it persists.
Right.
So you want to change someone, and you become even desperate to change, and the more resistance we experience, right? We struggle more. So the paradox of life is the more you accept, the more it transforms. And I have a few slides to go about it, because sometimes it can lead to contentment. And there are some realized souls who may just want to stay in the jungle and just stay there, just experience life. And but it is also a realization that if I accept a person just the way they are, okay, if I accept a person just the way they are, and I don't want to bring any change, even if God says I can change this person, and you say, no, the person is perfect, the person, I don't want to change anything about this person. It is at that time that we have the power to actually bring about a change, but we may not want to use that. It's a paradox of life. The more you accept, the more you can transform, and the more you resist, the more it persists. I'll just take you through a few slides, just explaining that. But before that, I want to share a few crux of this book. Can I go ahead, Ajit? I'll be speaking more on that. Yeah. So acceptance means actively contacting psychological experiences directly. This is about self. There are thoughts and there are emotions that comes up. Sometimes fear would come up. Sometimes happiness would come up. But we don't get very defensive about it. All right. So this is internally. Externally also there are life happens, it rains, and it is raining, right? You can be in a state of acceptance. You can be very happy about it. You can be sad about it. But when you are in a state of acceptance, yes, it is raining. When you are in a state of non-acceptance, why it has to rain today? Today only I needed to go for this important meeting and it is raining and there will be traffic jam and there's a lot of non-acceptance adding to unnecessary suffering, mental suffering. So it is what it is. Now, if you are not, there are something that is not acceptable to you in external life, maybe you can do something about it. There was a friend of mine and he was in Delhi and he said, I don't want to stay in this pollution. So he moved to Himalayas and he created some kind of a small resort for his income. And he said, quality of life is the fresh air I can breathe. So I don't want to stay in Delhi. I don't want to make so much money. I would rather stay in Himalayas in a nice, beautiful place. So he could switch what is non-acceptable, right? He could change. He wanted to avoid pollution and he switched to another place. But what if what we want to avoid is ourselves, right? So that's this book about. This book is not so much about external factors, whether we accept a traffic jam or not, right? The book is about accepting self. And there are 3 dimensions to self. One is at a physical level. Like some of us, we find my nose is not okay, my ear is not okay. I have very long jaw, or I'm short, or I'm fat, or I'm thin, or whatever. At the physical level, our relationship with our body. The second aspect is our relationship with our emotions. The third aspect is our relationship with our mind, right? So overall, because if you don't accept yourself, where will you go? Because some people, they run in life. They run from one place to another place. They run from one job to another job. In Mumbai, I stayed in a place called Vinalaya, and I happened to stay with a priest. And of course, there are priests who they become a priest because it's a call from God, you know. They're completely devoted. But this particular priest, he became a priest because he was very unhappy. He wanted to run away from life. He wanted to run away from everything. So he becomes a priest. Is he happy there? No. He again wants to run away to some other place. So Zig Ziglar used to say, wherever you go in life, you'll be miserable because you are there. You go to Tokyo, you go to Germany, you go to New Zealand, you go to Sri Lanka, you will be miserable because you are there, because you are finding it difficult to accept who you are. Right? So that's, there was a lady I was speaking yesterday, and she was saying that, you know, I have pain in the back and I want to cut it out and throw it away. What? Your back. You can't be cutting it out and throwing it away. Some people, when they have headache, I want to cut my head off, you know, I want to throw my head away. Because when you are not able to accept yourself, life can be pretty difficult. So self-acceptance is the core of this book. And there are 3 dimensions of self: physical dimension, emotional dimension, and the mind, the cognitive dimension. And that's this book is about, because sometimes we go to war with what we don't like about ourselves. This is Star Wars, and it represents the dark side and the light side, right? So there are things that we don't like about ourselves. And when we don't like about ourselves, we go to war. And what is the weapon that we use to go to war? Anybody?
Self-criticizing.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So this is what I realized. I'll go back to that notepad which I drew. That I want to become more peaceful, but I don't like to be disturbed, because I'm in the journey of wanting to become more peaceful. So what I want to avoid is non-peace. So what will stop me? So I want to draw a Lakshman Rekha, you know. So let's say a Lakshman Rekha, and this Lakshman Rekha is about, don't go to non-peace. Don't get disturbed. That too for small things. Manoj, come on. For small things, don't be so disturbed about it, right? And I want to be more productive. So how can you waste time? So I draw a Lakshman Rekha not to go there, right? And who can keep me in that Lakshman Rekha? My inner critic. My inner critic. My inner critic can discipline me not to go there, right? To be peaceful, to be productive, and so many other things in my journey of self-improvement. So will the inner critic succeed? Any guess? It will not succeed. So what I'll do, I'll fire the inner critic and I'll replace with what?
The coach.
I'll replace it with a bigger inner critic. Right? And over a period of time, this inner critic becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and develops a momentum of its own. Right? First, you drink alcohol to enjoy alcohol. But after, if you continuously drink alcohol, then alcohol will drink you. Right? You get into addiction. And there is an addiction that a lot of people go through, and that's the addiction of self-criticism. Right? We are just, if you have nothing to criticize, also we'll figure out something to criticize ourselves. Because we are not happy with ourselves. We can't live with ourselves. And what to do? So we want to change ourselves. And the tool that we use to change ourselves is just criticize, criticize, criticize. And there is an exercise that I went through called wholeness work, where I realized my inner critic experientially is pretty strong. Because over the years, anything that you keep practicing, you become better at it. So self-criticism, I practiced and I become better at it. There is a person who gave me a feedback. Manoj, you're too hard on yourself. So I became very defensive and I said, no, I'm a hardworking guy. I'm just a hardworking guy. What's wrong with hardworking? So she said, there is a difference between hardworking guy and being hard on yourself. So I couldn't think of anything. I kept quiet. But then hardworking guy and being hard on yourself. In order to be hard on yourself, you need to have a very strong inner critic. And why do you need an inner critic? Because you want to avoid certain things. Right? It's a state of non-acceptance. And so that's the inner war, the battle that and any battle, what happens? We get exhausted. We get tired. Right? The soldiers in Ukraine and Russia war, they're exhausted. They want a break because you keep fighting this war with yourself. And so that's where what you resist, it persists. And this war continues. Like Iran-Iraq war got over in 8 years, but some of us, we continue to fight with ourselves for probably a lifetime. Right? So self-acceptance is the main idea behind this book. Are there ways to accept ourselves? At least reduce this inner critic, maybe not completely take it away, but at least reduce this and be at ease with ourselves, be at peace with ourselves. So this book is not about accepting external situation. This book is about accepting who you are, right? And being at ease with oneself. So that's the crux of this book. And yes, Lakshmi, you have raised your hand.
No, about the self, that inner criticism, sometimes do you think that's a ploy for people just to get saying that, no, actually you're really good, you're missing out? Is it because you want some type of, someone praising you or appreciating you? Is that why you do this?
Yes. So we like appreciation, we like acceptance. I mean, anybody would like that. At the same time, we may want to avoid criticism, avoid rejection, avoid being lonely. And this avoidance creates, so what to do, right? So I'll just share one idea from this book in terms of what to do. There are a few other words that goes with acceptance. One is acknowledge, which we use a lot in our coaching session. I acknowledge, right? You're not approving it. You acknowledge. I acknowledge how hard it is for you, right? Acknowledgement is accepting. Okay. Another word that would go is allowing, right? One is that we can block something. One is just allowing. So sometimes you feel some sadness and you just allow those sadness to flow through you, right? You allow it, allowance. Another word that would go with acceptance is accommodate, right? So when a guest comes, like once in my house, some relatives came and they were more than like 10 relatives, almost a dozen relatives. And we have to do a lot of adjustment and accommodation so that, in one room, I have only 2 bedrooms. So like 4 or 5 of us, we were sleeping in 1 bedroom. But we were happy that, we are all together. We were very happy and we were accommodating it. So sometimes we have to accommodate a little bit. So accommodate is also something that would go with acceptance. And another word that would go is appreciate. Right? In some cases, we may go beyond acceptance a little bit and we may feel that this particular feedback that I got or this failure that I got is a stepping stone for success. Right? So sometimes you may want to appreciate that life experience, right? Instead of just accepting it. So these are some of the words. Any questions so far? Any comments?
Manoj, there are a couple of comments on the chat from Veronica.
Okay.
How important is it to understand and accept that non-acceptance of self could have come from outside perception and conditioning over a period of time? How easy or tough it is to unlearn that years of conditioning and start afresh?
Yes, it could come from within, it could come from outside. A lot of this gets registered in our mind. A lot of research has gone it. It gets registered in our mind up to the age of 8, especially from the age of 3 to age of 8, especially once we understand the language. Of course, it happens even before the age of 3, but primarily the age of 3 to 8, a lot of this gets registered in our mind. Okay. At the same time, it can happen, this conditioning can happen throughout our life as well. And like, for example, I gave the example, I attended this happiness workshop and I wanted to be so happy that I want to avoid anything, sadness, etc. So it can happen throughout our life also. That so wherever we are, if we can bring acceptance and allow these thoughts to come and go, allow these thoughts to come and go. So I would say, instead of this bracket, so there is this change work. I want to do change work, right? I don't want to go into contentment. That's what I think Ajit was mentioning. I don't want to go into contentment. I want to do change work, right? Like Apple wants to come up with a better iPhone. I also want to come up with a better version of myself. But on the other side, instead of wanting to avoid, I can go into acceptance. That is, I would like to have some creative thoughts. I would like to be productive. Or let's say, I would like to feel happy, right? But at the same time, I can allow unhappiness when it comes, right? So yes, I can make a conscious effort to wake up happily. I can make a conscious effort to enjoy my breakfast, to bring a little more positivity and cheerfulness in my life. There's nothing wrong about it. But unhappiness is something I don't have to avoid, right? I can just allow or acknowledge, allow. I think allow is a very good word. Allow. Honor it. Honor those experiences. I think honoring is also a nice word. So allow those failures, allow those, when you are rejected, you will feel bad, and allow those feelings instead of suppressing them, instead of going into denial, instead of coming up with some defensive strategies, allowing those. So it is not pleasant. When you go through, so suppose if you have been rejected and you go through a lot of so strong feelings, it is not pleasant. So we want to take a drink, we want to smoke it out, we want to probably watch Netflix. We come up with so many ways to distract ourselves from these unpleasant thoughts. But if you completely stay with it, if you completely allow these emotions to go through and maybe even listen to it, acknowledge it, honor it, so that embracing would be a little stronger word. If you can embrace every life experience as it unfolds, that would be a little difficult for some of us, but at least acknowledging it and experiencing it and not wanting to run away from it, right? So that is a model that I would like to present. So here, so we have this criticism, pressure, and we want to change. And instead of that, we want acceptance and change. We want to hold both. They look like dialectical. They look like opposing forces. Because when you accept, you don't feel like changing. But you can come up with a vision. And visions, you can come up with a sense of purpose, a sense of mission. And you want to move in that direction. But you don't have to have some negativity in order to change, because we don't have to go into self-criticism to change. And this is a movie that impacted me a lot. Tare Zameen Pe, many of you must have seen it. And it's a Hindi movie. Some of you may not have seen it, but it's a boy. And how do you change this boy who's not scoring well? Okay, so the teachers, they beat him physically, criticize him, shout at him. Okay, change work means criticism. For a lot of change means you criticize yourself. We may use fancy words like self-discipline, but basically it is criticizing. You punish yourself, punish, and change a person, right? In some rare cases, it may be okay, but you continuously punish yourself, your inner critic is going to grow strong, right? But then Amir Khan comes, there is no negativity. He accepts the boy just the way he is. At the same time, he also works with the boy to change. It's a beautiful combination of acceptance and change. Amir Khan does not go through any anger. He has empathy for the child. At the same time, he wants the child to improve. And so he holds these two seemingly opposite forces, that is acceptance and change. And that's the key, I would say, to change work. On one side, we hold acceptance, and the other side, we hold change. And both can be held together, is my story. I have just last 2 slides about for the conclusion. Before that, maybe if there are something. Yes, yes, Karan.
So I think you partially answered it, but I would still voice it out. One line that I wrote from your session as of now is, in the beginning, you said it is so difficult to catch that I am avoiding something, right? Now, let us say getting into a coaching conversation, you realize that client might be avoiding X, Y, Z elements. It could be fear, it could be. As a coach, how do you bring this to the table, and how do you let the client know that he or she could be avoiding certain things and not yet aware of it?
Yeah, I would probably go into myself if I'm a coach. And what is that I'm scared of? See, peer coaching is a bit easy, but real life coaching I found initially to be a challenge, because you ask, what are you learning about yourself? And the client says nothing. How do you know? And it's very common for a client to say nothing. No. Can you, what action steps would you like to take? I don't want to take any action steps. So this is very common that I have found in this thing. So can I accept, as a coach, can I accept where the client is at right now, right? Because if I can bring, I feel the world will be all right if we become all right. The more I practice self-acceptance, I think the more I will have the ability to accept another person. And the more I have a ability to accept another person, I mean, instead of consciously trying to accept another person, I think self-acceptance is the key. And the more there is acceptance, I think rest of it will automatically. Of course, coaching is outcome orientation. So there is a vision. The client has a vision, right? The client has a goal to go after. So that is the change work, right? So you hold on to that. The client has a vision, and you hold on to that acceptance. I think rest of it will probably automatically take care. If you can accept the client the way they are and where they are at that point in time, I think rest of it, what I've realized is when I find certain things unacceptable, I tend to go into immediate problem solving. It is not that I want to solve the problem. It's that I'm finding it difficult. Why is the client going into this direction, you know? So I want to give advice or something. Acceptance will bring that ease in us, and that ease will take care of the situation. Is just my thought process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Satyajit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sir, one more thing, when you get more qualifications and you get more qualified, or you read a lot of books, what happens, there's a two school of thought comes into picture. One, like for example, one school of thought is tea is good for health. The second school of thought, or school of thought means some research where you study, where you find that tea is not good for health. So similarly in life, different situations comes where you get contradictory thoughts. Okay. There's a third thing which also happens, which I have experienced, that you wait for something, without your logic. I mean, the logical mind says that you should not wait. You should rush for somebody to meet or something, but you wait, and then something else happens automatically, and you feel that you waited because some other force, third force, stopped you there, and something was about to happen there, and so that's the third thing. That's the third force which I have always seen in my life. But before that third force comes into picture, there are always two schools of thoughts, because creates a contradiction. That is because of a lot of knowledge, a lot of reading, a lot of, basically you find that there's always two ways of looking at the picture. So in that situation, how do we, on what to accept in that situation becomes a problem. So unless there's a third force which comes into the picture. I mean, when the third force you accept, which happened like today, I was about to meet an engineer, and I was just waiting, and the time was going away, and I thought the engineer will leave at 6 o'clock, and I left home at 6 o'clock. By that time, there's somebody else who came, and happened to interact, and when I reached 6 o'clock, the engineer was also waiting there. I don't know why he was waiting there, but I finished that work also. And so 2-3 activities happened, which was beyond my...
I think I lost.
Yeah. So what I'm saying that other than the third force, other than the nature's force governing you sometimes, what are the two? I mean, when it comes to two contradictions, which one which I should accept? That becomes a question mark sometimes.
Okay, I couldn't get, because of the voice disturbance, I couldn't really make out. But I will. Acceptance is acceptance of reality, acceptance of what is. I didn't get the first part of the couple of things that you shared, but acceptance of what is the reality, and accepting that.
Okay.
He's talking about the contradictions. So for me, it's the contradiction or acceptance of the contradictions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can just say correct me if I'm wrong, whether I got you right or not. Life is on one side and death is on the other side, and it looks like they are on the opposite side of each other, right? And there is this inner peace on one side, and there is this disturbance on the other side, right? So they look like diametrically opposite, but they are not. It's I think in the Eastern philosophy, we speak about the yin and the day. So we speak about day and we speak about night. We speak about night. You can't hold one thing. That is, you can't hold life and be scared of death. Then you can't hold life fully, right? You have to hold both, embrace both. Or if embrace is too strong a word, at least accept both, that life. So we want to embrace health, and we develop a fear for sickness. But the reality is both are part of life, happiness and unhappiness. So there are both the side. If you want to hold only one end of the stick, it becomes very difficult to, it becomes, so if you're scared of death, then living life becomes very difficult. So we accept the wholeness of the situation, we accept the entirety of the situation. And especially from inner peace, but I have found that it is through disturbance, it is through acceptance of disturbance that I will find my inner peace. Right? It is not like chasing inner peace. It is not that I chase the inner peace. No, I go here. I keep chasing here. But it is through acceptance of my disturbance that I will find that inner peace. At one stage that I feel that like Eckhart Tolle used to say, when you are one step away from despair, you are also one step away from enlightenment. So it's like saying the failure is a stepping stone for success. The more you fail, the more you'll succeed. So acceptance of death and as part of life actually helps you to live life, right? We don't want to avoid this. We don't want to approve of it, but at least this is part of reality, and we can accept as this is what is. It is what it is. It is what it is. At least bring some acceptance to it. And so I don't know if that was the contradiction. I couldn't hear you. Yeah. So as a coach, if my client might give me critical feedback, my client may want to discontinue. These are things I'm scared of as a coach, that my client might give me a very bad feedback. Of course, even as a trainer, I have this, because at the end of every session, there is a feedback session, right? That there will be a negative feedback. If I'm making a presentation, people might leave, may even walk out. These are things that is part of this job. Like if you're a movie star, your movies will flop. It's a part of reality. If you're not willing to accept that, you will go into all kinds of mental illness. A lot of mental illness can be traced to non-acceptance. I will not accept failure. I would rather I'd rather have some mental problem, yeah, right? And at least I will not have to confront the failures. So what is it that you are scared of? What is it that you are afraid of? And if you can bring acceptance, it may not be the very deep things that you are scared of. It may be difficult for you, but at least little things you can start. What is it that I want to avoid? What is it that I'm scared of? Because if we can acknowledge that, if we can accept it, then life moves a little faster. Change happens a lot faster. The more you accept, the more you transform. The more you resist, the more it persists. Yes, Subramani.
Just a couple of thoughts, Manoj. We've had discussion on this earlier, and this is something which I, kind of like thinking about. So there's few threads as people were talking about. One is, I think acceptance is a lot about expressing, right? It's not about withdrawal. It's not about becoming inert.
Yeah.
So I think when we talk about acceptance, someone was also sharing about, having no choice. I don't think it's that, right? It's about what cards have you been dealt with? How are you going to play them? That's it, right? So the second thought was, it's also a lot about just being and not doing. Really, we're not talking about, what do I, so when we say, okay, I'm in a bad situation, I want to improve that situation. But first of all, I am in a bad situation. That's it. That's my present. So my aspiration is my future. The acceptance is all in here and now, the present. Right. So just some random thoughts.
And Mani, you spoke about withdrawal. Withdrawal is non-acceptance.
Yeah.
We want to withdraw. And I've seen a lot of people who are wants to become trainer, want to become coach. They don't approach a particular client because they are scared of rejection. And so they withdraw. And withdrawal gives you a sense of relief. Maybe next week I'll contact this person. But if you can accept that, let it be. If rejection is part of life, let it be. What is. And if you can bring some acceptance and allowance, if you give some space for rejection in our life, then life can be a lot more wonderful. The more you want to avoid rejection, the more life becomes difficult. So, and what if I do coaching, and what if it's a failure? And if we allow those failures to be there, it's part of life. Not every client you can succeed, right? Some clients' failure might happen. And if you give some allowance to that, some space, you accommodate room for failure, then you won't stop. You will do what you really want to do.
Yeah, what if and why me?
All these what if thoughts and all this catastrophizing happens from non-acceptance because it's so unpleasant. I can't experience rejection. No, baby, rejection is part of life. Rejection is so much part of life, and wanting to live in a world where there are no rejection is to live in some hypothetical or illusionary world. In this world, rejection happens, and better get on with it.
Parallel universe.
Yeah, you are living in a parallel universe where there are no failures, where there are no criticism, where there are rejection happens, failure happens. And the best way to deal with is, of course, you learn from it. You can even appreciate failure. That's the best way. Embrace failure. That's the best way. But maybe to start with, you can use the word allow. I will allow some space for failures. I'll allow some space for criticism. I'll allow some space for rejections. That gives us a lot of room to do so many wonderful things in life. Right. So that's this change work where we give some another word is allowing some failures, allowing some disturbance into that. And yes, before the last 2 slides, before I close, yes, Bindu.
Small observation again. There is no such thing called rejection, is there? It's only an expression of a different point of view, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once you go there, you won't even label it as rejection. And back to Windows, the same thing. Every experience is sacred. We are here to experience life, and every life experience is sacred. And maybe I'll complete the slides, and maybe then I'll take. Non-acceptance creates blocks, like some politicians, when they want to travel, they block the roads, and it creates a lot of traffic jam. So we want to block certain life experiences through non-acceptance. But acceptance is to allow and start where you can. So sometimes I'll just give an example. This is very critical because sometimes people say, I cannot accept. I am an obese person. I mean, I've added a lot of weight. I cannot accept my pot belly, or I cannot accept my obesity. Manoj, you are asking me to, but I just can't accept. Okay, you can't accept, but start from where you can. So we can say, can you accept that you are not able to accept your obesity? At least can you accept your non-acceptance? You start where you can, right? So once you start accepting your non-acceptance, maybe at one stage you'll be able to move to the next level. So what is it that you can accept? You start there, because there are certain things which are quite painful for us, and we might find it difficult to accept that. So start where you can and allow life to flow. Right? We block it through, I don't want to experience this. I don't want to experience this. This shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening. All this should fallacy comes up, allowing life to flow. And when you allow life to flow, life is a miracle. And that's why, of course, the book I initially titled as Power of Acceptance, but then I felt power is so, it's so hard, like when we are angry, our muscle tighten. But when we are in a state of acceptance, our muscles they loosen up. So I felt miracle is a more subtler expression. So I titled as Miracle of Acceptance. And there's a flower in the book, which is also shows that even soft things can be powerful. Like a flower can, it has that magnetic aura around it that it attracts so many people, right? And we even present it to God. So softness also has a power. And acceptance looks like you're going soft, but it has a lot of power. And so much so that it can make life a miracle. So I think I started the book with this, and there's a page here. I started saying that life is a miracle. And acceptance is the way to experience life. Acceptance is allowing what is, that is allowing the life to be the way it is, allowing it to unfold the way it is. So that's my presentation, and maybe I'll hang around to interact with a few of you.
Yeah, very nice presentation. I love the spiritual and psychological and basic dimensions, the way you interweave. It occurs to me that this is really about, for coaches, it's really about coaching presence in a way. We're taught presence is something you have to do or work at. But it seems to me that acceptance, that deep inner self-acceptance is really the key to our own presence with ourselves. Only when we have that in great depth can we show up that way for a client. And then it's not about a doing. We become what's called in presence-based coaching, we become a field of transformation. The transformation starts to happen by itself. So very relevant to coaching, also to Gestalt coaching, where they say that They put the emphasis on the reality because until you accept the moment as it is, you cannot use it as a stepping stone to where you want to get. You can't simply step over what is. So beautiful work, and I hope you develop it more.
Yeah, thank you. Very well said, Rafi, very well said. Yes.
Yes, I'll contact you if you don't mind. I found this very interesting. I'd like to discuss with you a bit more.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Hima Bindu.
Manoj, really beautiful topic, very relevant topic also, because as coaches day in, day out, we also work with other coaches as coaches, and there's a lot of areas where I see we have to accept the reality. And I have been looking at acceptance from a different perspective. Like I'm accepting my siblings, I'm accepting my husband, I'm accepting my surroundings. But acceptance of self and how I'm perceiving the situation is something which is like an inner work, which I will want to work right now. Yeah. Having said that, should there be a limit to acceptance?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I took supervision from Rekha, and one of the things that came out is that anything that I like, I tend to go into perfectionism. So I have a tendency to go into full acceptance, but that is not how reality can be. If you can bring a little more acceptance, I would say that everything I need to accept itself becomes very process. Yes.
Right. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Shraddha?
Yes, I want to ask this, like if we are too much in acceptance, we'd stop taking actions, what I feel.
Yeah. Maybe if you are submissive, we may, or when we are scared, we might stop taking actions.
So how we balance that? Because I've seen it happens once we think, no, we should not make ourselves hard and we have to accept this. And we, if we really want to do something, if we don't accept the situation, and we start taking more action. So sometimes this acceptance is not good for me, I think.
Yeah. So one can have a vision, one can have a sense of purpose in life, one can have a sense of a goal in life that is makes life meaningful and worthwhile. So a doctor who has a vision to help his patients and as many as possible, maybe very much into energy to want to bring about change, want to bring about a lot of stuff. So vision is better. Non-acceptance, what happens is it ends up just improving our inner critic. And over a period of time, the inner critic becomes so strong that we go into a vicious cycle. That we change and then we don't change, and we change and we don't change. So having a vision and be propelled by a vision, a sense of purpose is a way to change. So that's one thing that we want to hold. And on the other side, acceptance, because as you walk through the vision, things may not work out the way you want to work out, but you continue to accept as life unfolds, but continue to hold your vision. So holding these two things, one is acceptance, one is change. Change in the sense, a sense of mission, a sense of purpose, a goal that is very meaningful for you.
So how do you balance that? Like how to make sure that whether you're accepting too much or you're making your vision fulfill? So how do you balance that moment?
So you can investigate when you say accepting too much, you can investigate. There could be chances that it could be some form of submissiveness, some form of lack of assertiveness, or some form of fear, some form of withdrawal. And accepting the reality does not create, I wouldn't say there is too much there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll have to, Manoj, accept that you're not looking at my hand.
No, Actually, I saw it is visible.
I've been in total acceptance that he's ignoring me. But
No. I didn't notice. Yes, Shelly.
Okay, so I think, Manoj, couple of things which are very key in terms of takeaways from this particular session that you had just finished. So thank you so much for doing that. And I'm just going to take a shot at what Shraddha asked you, right, in terms of too much acceptance. So I think there is no
what do you say? You can't compare, or you don't have a scale whether one thing is too much or too less. What I believe is that at the end of the day, I think every person's quest for life is happiness. So if accepting at whatever stage is giving you that calm and happiness, that should be your scale of going ahead with it.
Yeah.
And what I believe is that you should between acceptance and non-acceptance, whatever gives you that calm, whatever gives you that peace, you should go ahead with doing that. For example, if somebody is being very mean to you, you know that consistently that person doesn't like you and is rude to you, right? And in your mind, you like, oh my God, I'm never going to forgive this person. I'm not going to accept this person at all. This person has been so mean and since so many years to me. So then what happens is that, the mind is always caught up in conflict. Yeah. So there is something, and there's another aspect that I would like to bring this to, is that there is something which is called as active acceptance and passive acceptance. One is that I'm passively accepting and my brain or my mind is boiling when I think of that person. So that is passive acceptance. That, okay, fine, let me accept that person, but at the same time, I'm not at peace. Yeah. I'm still thinking, and 90% of my energy during the day is going ahead with saying that, okay, I don't accept this person, but then, because Manoj taught me that, yes, we should be accepting, I'll go ahead with accepting, but my brain is not at peace.
Yeah.
There is another thing which is called as active acceptance, which is like, I accept who this person is, right? And I'm not going to go ahead and fight in my mind or going to take an action in terms of changing this person because I don't accept it. Yeah. So the active acceptance part of it is that I accept however this person is, and then I do the needful, whether I have to distance myself from that person, whether I have to accept/tolerate this person's existence in my life if I can't distance, etc. So I think that's a conscious, mindful action that I will take after I have actively accepted.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so I think, Shraddha, what you asked in terms of lot of acceptance or less of acceptance is completely up to the individual. And if that situation, that moment, that event, accepting it gives you that happiness, gives you that calm, then you go ahead with doing that. And see which one is easy. As per my experience of it, if I'm boiling inside, if I'm angry inside, then obviously that's not calm. That's not acceptance.
So I'll just,
so whichever is easier, we should try and do that, because at the end of the day, we all want to be joyful. Yeah.
Yeah. Suppose if your goal is to become happy, and that's a goal, and one can take a lot of things consciously, we can do a lot of things that makes us happy, right? And in pursuit of happiness. At the same time, giving some room for that when it boils within, giving some allowance to that will actually help you pursue that happiness even more. Some acceptance when you are disturbed, some acceptance when you are boiling, that I give myself permission to experience this boiling within, to give that permission to yourself and continue to pursue your vision. So we have a goal, we have a vision, and things doesn't happen according to our vision. And when things doesn't happen according to our plan, we bring some level of acceptance to that. And of course, we rework on our plan and we continue to pursue our sense of purpose and vision. A lot of non-acceptance or a continuous non-acceptance makes it life. Already there is some things which are not according to our plan. On top of it, non-acceptance makes, over a period of time, it can make a life a little difficult. Yeah. So thank you for all for coming here, and acceptance is just one topic, and it's a wonderful topic, and hope I've kindled some interest in the topic. And very nice to see all of you, especially Shelly and my batchmates, Lakshmi and Bhavani, my PCC batchmate, and a few of you. Thank you so much for coming. And Karan, can I hand it over back to you?
Yeah. So we have the, Subhash, you want to take it?
So, it's a great book to reflect. And, the opening line that Manoj spoke of as life is a miracle is a great starting point. That is on the page 1, on the printed page. And, there are a lot of things that you'll pick up along the way. and it will be very thought-provoking. I invite you to buy, spread the word. Thanks, Manoj. Very, very interesting session. A lot of takeaways. Yeah. And we'll promote this book more so that, what you are not doing, we will do. Yeah. Congratulations again for the book. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Manoj. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you
so
everyone.
much.
Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.